Every single person who told you a fifth-round pick had no business competing for a starting job in the NFL owes you an apology right now. They told you Shedeur Sanders did not have the arm. They told you the league was too fast, too physical, too unforgiving for a quarterback who fell that far on draft night. They watched him sit through one of the most publicly humiliating moments any prospect has ever endured on national television, and they used that moment as confirmation that the league had already made its judgment. Then pads went on in Berea, Ohio, and within 72 hours, that same fifth-round pick started posting numbers against a live NFL pass rush that made every single one of those criticisms sound less like analysis and more like scrambling. What is happening right now inside Cleveland Browns training camp is not a feel-good story. It is not a redemption arc being packaged for a documentary crew. It is a genuine football earthquake that is forcing an entire organization to confront a question they were not expecting to face this early. And today, right here on Gridiron Ground, I am going to break down every single layer of it for you. The practice numbers, the national media going all in, the defensive players nobody is covering enough, and the one storyline that keeps getting buried underneath all the noise. Drop one word in the comments right now. Just one word. Shedeur or Watson. Tell me who you think wins this job when the dust settles, because this conversation is about to get very real very fast. Before moving further, we're pushing for 1,000 subscribers here at Gridiron Ground. If you're enjoying our Browns and Shedeur Sanders coverage, hit that subscribe button and be part of the journey. Let's build this community together. If you are someone who pays attention to what happens on Gridiron Ground, you already know this channel does not operate on hype. We do not chase headlines for the sake of clicks, and we do not tell you what you want to hear just because it makes the comment section feel good. So when I tell you the early padded practice numbers coming out of Berea are significant, I need you to understand that I am saying it because the evidence demands it, not because the narrative is convenient. Once the first live team periods of Cleveland Browns training camp got underway, reporters and content creators on the ground started tracking completions, touchdowns, and interceptions in real time. The numbers they brought back were not subtle. Shedeur Sanders, the rookie fifth-round pick who walked into this camp carrying every ounce of draft night humiliation on his shoulders, was completing the clear majority of his throws across a workload that was noticeably heavier than anyone else in the quarterback room. Most tallies had him sitting well north of 90% with 8 touchdowns against only 2 interceptions through those early padded sessions. That is not a typo. That is the number reporters with notebooks on the sideline were consistently tracking. Deshaun Watson, operating on a visibly lighter rep count, was completing roughly 2/3 of his attempts. He posted 10 touchdowns across that same window, which sounds respectable on the surface, until you factor in the 6 interceptions he was mixing in alongside them. Dylan Gabriel sat somewhere in the middle of those two. Talon Green, working with only a handful of reps, went completely clean in both directions. No scores and no picks. Now here is where the context becomes absolutely critical, and where a lot of coverage has either rushed past it or ignored it entirely. These are informal practice tallies. They are being tracked by reporters standing on a sideline, not generated by an official NFL statistical system. The reps are not distributed evenly across all 4 quarterbacks. The situations are not identical. The defensive pressure installed during each period was not the same across the board. You cannot treat these raw counting numbers the way you would treat a box score from an actual regular season game, because the sample sizes differ. The conditions differ, and the intent behind each period differs. But here is what makes the trend impossible to dismiss, even after you account for every single one of those caveats. Multiple reporters on the ground.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Specifically noted that Shedeur was taking first-team reps during stretches where the defense had a live pass rush installed. That means defenders coming off the edge with real intent to disrupt the pocket, real closing speed, real pressure on the blind side. Watson's early first team work, by contrast, came primarily during structured red zone and goal line periods where the defense operates in a tighter, more contained window without that same open field pressure bearing down on the quarterback. That distinction is not a footnote. It is the entire story underneath the numbers. Completing passes at a high rate in a scripted low-pressure red zone period is a fundamentally different accomplishment than doing the same thing while an NFL defensive end is closing on your blind side in real time. Ask any quarterback coach in this league, and they will tell you the mental processing required when pass rush is live goes up by several degrees. Decisions have to happen faster. Ball placement has to be cleaner. The margin for hesitation essentially disappears. And that is exactly the environment Shedeur has been operating in. That is exactly the environment producing those numbers. If you are new to Gridiron Ground, understand something right now. This channel exists because the real story always lives underneath the surface. Hit that subscribe button and be part of what we are building here, because every single breakdown from this point through the preseason is going to give you the kind of analysis that separates understanding from guessing. And what comes next in this story involves one of the biggest voices in all of football putting his entire reputation behind a take that is going to follow this competition all the way to week 1. There are takes that float through the sports media cycle and disappear within 48 hours. Somebody says something provocative on camera, the internet reacts for a day, and then the conversation moves on to whatever happened next. And then there are commitments. What Colin Cowherd did on The Herd was a commitment. He did not casually mention Shedeur Sanders in a passing segment. He did not hedge his language or leave himself an escape route in case the take aged poorly. He built a detailed, data-backed argument, planted his flag directly on top of it, and told anyone watching that this is a hill he is willing to die on. Those were his exact words. Here is what Cowherd actually laid out, because the specifics matter far more than the headline version bouncing around social media. He pointed out that Shedeur started the final 7 games of last season for Cleveland while operating behind an offensive line ranked dead last in the entire NFL. 31st out of 32 teams, the absolute bottom of the league in pass protection. And within that specific 7-game stretch, according to Cowherd, Shedeur produced more touchdown passes than Josh Allen did over that same span. Let that sit for a moment before you react to it. He then stacked another layer on top. Across that identical 7-game window, Shedeur produced as many total touchdowns as Sam Darnold, Justin Herbert, and Jordan Love each managed over the same stretch. Those are not fringe names he is pulling out of a hat. Darnold nearly took Minnesota to a Super Bowl appearance last season. Herbert has been one of the most gifted pure passers this league has seen in half a decade. Jordan Love has genuine Super Bowl aspirations in Green Bay, and Shedeur was matching their touchdown output behind the worst.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Pass protection in professional football. Cowherd went even further. He predicted Cleveland wins between 6 and 8 games this season, with Shedeur leading the offense. He compared the entire situation to the Tim Tebow phenomenon, except in his own words, with a quarterback who can actually win football games. Then he said, with full awareness of what he was putting on the line, that this is where he stands, and he is not moving. Now I want to be genuinely responsible about this, because any comparison that includes Josh Allen's name needs real context, or it becomes something it was never intended to be. Cowherd is talking about a 7-game sample, one specific stretch at the end of one specific season. He is not making a career comparison. He is absolutely not arguing that Shedeur Sanders is currently a better quarterback than Josh Allen. Cowherd himself has Allen ranked as his overall #1 quarterback in all of football heading into this season. That matters. The comparison is a narrow, specific data point designed to illustrate that Shedeur was producing at a rate comparable to genuinely excellent quarterbacks, despite playing with support that was objectively worse than anything those quarterbacks had around them. That is still a legitimately striking argument, even inside its proper context. Touchdown production is not random. It does not happen because a quarterback gets lucky or because the schedule was soft. It requires decision-making, anticipation, ball placement, and the ability to operate under duress. Shedeur was delivering all of that with essentially no protection, keeping the pocket clean behind him. The Tebow comparison deserves a moment too because Cowherd framed it carefully. He was not calling Shedeur a Tebow-style quarterback. He was drawing a parallel to how media narratives can form around young quarterbacks before the real evidence has fully arrived, and arguing that Shedeur is receiving the skeptical treatment, while the actual statistical output suggests something genuinely different is happening on the field. Whether you buy the full Cowherd argument or push back on parts of it, the core of what he is saying is anchored in something real. A quarterback producing at that level behind that kind of line deserves to be taken seriously. But the full picture of that rookie season has a lot more going on beneath the surface than most of the daily coverage has been willing to explore. And the specific throws happening on the practice field in Berea right now tell a story that no aggregate number can fully capture. Beyond the stat trackers and the television studio debates, there is an actual practice field in Berea where real football is being played. And what reporters on the ground have been highlighting goes well beyond completion percentages and touchdown tallies. There were specific throws during these padded sessions that drew genuine attention from people watching closely, and they deserve individual attention because they reveal something more nuanced than any counting stat can communicate. The first one came during a red zone period. Shedeur connected with wide receiver Casey Conception on a throw that reporters specifically praised for its placement, not its velocity, not how far it traveled, where it was put. The ball landed in a spot inside the end zone where only the receiver had a realistic chance of making a play on it. That is a technical skill that separates quarterback tiers more than almost any other single measurable attribute in this sport. Understanding leverage in a crowded red zone, reading where the defender's body is positioned, and throwing to the window that exists rather than the window.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Where the receiver is currently standing. That is not arm talent on display. That is football intelligence operating at a high level in a live situation with real consequences. The second throw that generated attention was a completion to tight end Deshaun Watson running a dig route across the middle of the field. Reporters described the ball hitting him right in the numbers at full speed, which in tight coverage is exactly the kind of delivery that tells you a quarterback is processing the route concept ahead of the play rather than reacting to it as it develops in front of him. When a tight end running a dig route catches the ball in stride without having to slow down, adjust his body, or reach awkwardly in either direction, it means the quarterback solved the coverage before the snap. He identified the leverage, anticipated the breaking point of the route, and put the ball in the right place before the route was even finished developing. That is a higher tier of football than raw completion percentage can ever reflect on its own. Now to Watson's credit, and if you spend any time on Gridiron ground, you know balance matters here more than narrative. He had a rep worth genuine recognition during these same sessions. His throw to Denzel Boston in the back of the end zone during a structured red zone period was exactly the kind of throw coaches want from a veteran quarterback. Quick decision, clear intent. The ball was out of his hand fast, which tells you he had the read solved before the center even snapped it. Pre-snap processing at the NFL level is a real and important skill, and Watson demonstrated it cleanly on that specific play. When a quarterback knows where the ball is going before the snap, the entire timing chain of the throw changes. The receiver gets the ball on a faster path. The window closes less. The defense has less time to react. That is a legitimate positive rep, and it earned the credit reporters gave it on the ground. But here is where a perspective from someone who has actually been inside that building becomes genuinely valuable. Former Cleveland wide receiver Josh Cribbs made a point publicly that applies to both sides of this conversation and deserves more weight than most of the camp coverage has given it. The defense in training camp already knows what plays are coming. Defensive backs are jumping routes they have already studied on film 3 times during the practice week. Linebackers are recognizing formations they have defended in walkthrough sessions 2 days earlier. The entire competitive environment, even in padded live team periods, operates at a fundamentally different level of genuine surprise than a real game situation where the defense is seeing something for the first time. If you have been watching Gridiron Ground from the beginning, you know we never let a single data point carry more weight than it deserves. Subscribe now because the preseason game breakdowns coming next are going to separate what is real from what is camp noise in a way nobody else is doing. That context does not erase what Shedeur is showing. His footwork, his placement, his pre-snap reads all reflect real development happening in real time. But treating any practice session as a final verdict on the entire quarterback competition would be getting ahead of the evidence. What the field evidence does support is this. Multiple independent reporters.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Watching with their own eyes have consistently returned with the same read. Shedeur is operating across a heavier workload at a noticeably higher level than the veteran he is competing against. And the full story of his rookie season reveals why that consistency might matter more than anyone expected. When you pull up Shedeur Sanders' full rookie season stat line and look at it on the surface, it does not jump off the page. 8 appearances, 7 starts, 57% completion rate, 1,400 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, a 68.1 passer rating. By conventional standards, those numbers are modest at best. And if you stopped your evaluation right there, closed the laptop and walked away, you could reasonably conclude that nothing particularly special happened during his first year in the league. But football evaluation has always demanded going underneath the surface numbers because the surface almost never tells you the full story. The game-by-game breakdown of that rookie season reveals something the aggregate completely obscures. Week 14 against Tennessee was a genuine breakout performance by any reasonable standard of measurement. Shedeur threw for 364 yards and 3 touchdowns in that game, and added a rushing score on top of it. What makes that specific stat line historically notable is not just the raw production. It is the company it places him in. He became only the second rookie quarterback in the entire Super Bowl era to record over 350 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown in the same game. The only other rookie to hit all 4 of those marks in a single outing was Joe Burrow. That is not a fluke. That is not the product of a soft schedule or garbage time padding. That is a 22-year-old quarterback operating behind the worst offensive line in professional football, producing a single-game performance that has only happened once before at the position in the entire history of the modern game. Then you move to Week 17 against Pittsburgh, a game that carried real stakes beyond Cleveland's own season. A Browns win would knock the Steelers out of the AFC North race entirely. Shedeur connected with tight end Harold Fannin Jr. for a touchdown and hit wide receiver Cedric Tillman for a 42-yard gain in the same contest. Cleveland won. Pittsburgh's playoff hopes took a direct hit. A rookie quarterback in just his 7th career start delivered in a game that meant something tangible for the entire conference landscape. Those specific performances are the evidence underneath the numbers Cowherd was building his argument around. He was not cherry-picking a random window that happened to look favorable. He was pointing at a stretch where, despite the worst possible structural support, a young quarterback was making the kinds of plays that legitimate franchise quarterbacks make in moments that actually matter. Now here is where honesty requires going in the other direction, because this channel has never been interested in one-sided storytelling. Detailed film analysis published after the season ended identified real and substantive mechanical concerns in Shedeur's game that showed up consistently on tape. The critique centered on three specific areas. His drop out of the snap was frequently too slow, adding extra time to the play clock before his feet were even set. His processing through his full read progression was taking longer than an NFL quarterback can afford against quality defensive schemes that disguise coverage post-snap. And once he had identified his target, his release was taking too long to get the ball out of his hand, giving closing defenders extra time to either make a play on the football or drive the receiver off his route before the catch point arrived. One analyst drew a specific comparison to a young Josh Allen in terms of processing hesitation and release delay, but the critique was explicit about the crucial difference. Allen could bail himself out of those delays with an arm that operates at a physical level almost nobody in the history of the position has ever matched, combined with the athleticism to extend plays long enough for windows to reopen entirely. Shedeur does not possess those same physical tools as a bailout mechanism. His game has to be cleaner from the start because he does not have the same margin for error that Allen's rare gifts provided throughout his own development. That is a fair and grounded critique from people who broke down the tape carefully rather than reacting to box scores and press conference quotes. But here is the piece that matters most for evaluating what is happening in camp right now. Processing speed, release quickness, drop efficiency. Every single one of those areas is coachable. They are exactly the kinds of mechanical refinements that a new offensive coordinator working with a young quarterback in padded practice is spending every available rep trying to tighten up. Todd Monken is not in Berea having philosophical conversations about potential. He is running Shedeur through repetition after repetition specifically designed to close the gap between where he is right now and where an efficient NFL starter needs to operate. Both the ceiling and the concerns are real. And the first padded practices are the clearest window yet into which direction this thing is actually heading. But what happened next in the public conversation around this competition revealed a pattern that once you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it. If you have been following this quarterback competition with any consistency through the offseason, there is a pattern forming in the public criticism of Shedeur Sanders that deserves to be called out directly. Not because every person making these critiques is acting in bad faith, but because good analysis requires noticing when a narrative keeps shifting in a direction that happens to be conveniently difficult to challenge with available evidence. Before organized team activities, the primary knock on Shedeur was his arm. The narrative was clear and confident. He did not have the velocity or the downfield throwing capacity to survive in a modern NFL offense at the starting level. The league was too fast. The windows were too tight. A fifth-round arm was a fifth-round arm, and no amount of coaching was going to change the fundamental physical limitation. Then OTAs happened. And by most accounts from people actually present, he performed well enough to put that specific conversation on pause. The arm talent concern did not disappear because someone argued it away on a podcast. It lost traction because the evidence on the field stopped supporting it as the primary issue. So the criticism shifted. Suddenly, the conversation became about pocket presence. Was he moving cleanly enough under pressure? Was his footwork disciplined enough in a live environment? Could he handle the physical reality of NFL pass rushers bearing down on him from multiple angles simultaneously? Then pads went on. The practice numbers came back, and the pocket presence critique became increasingly difficult to sustain when the quarterback in question was completing throws at a 90+% rate while facing a live pass rush that the other quarterbacks in the room were not consistently seeing. And now the conversation has shifted again. Now it is about cadence. For anyone who might not be deep in the technical side of quarterback play, cadence refers to the snap count a quarterback uses to signal the center to hike the football. At a basic level, it is simply a verbal signal. But at a sophisticated NFL level, cadence is a genuine weapon. Quarterbacks use hard counts designed to draw the defense offside before a play even begins. They vary their rhythm and timing at the line to prevent defenders from timing the snap and jumping into the backfield before the ball is actually in the quarterback's hands. The best quarterbacks in this league have almost musical command of their cadence, making defensive linemen hesitate and second-guess themselves before a single block is thrown. Todd Monken addressed this directly in his press conference, and his comments were substantive enough to deserve real attention. He said clearly that his expectation is for his quarterbacks to vary their cadence rather than defaulting to one predictable rhythm. He acknowledged that you could technically simplify everything to a single snap count and probably reduce false starts, but doing so would cost the offense a genuine weapon at the line of scrimmage. His exact framing was that you cannot lead an offense if you are not a leader at cadence, that it has to be commanded, not just executed. That is legitimate coaching philosophy. Cadence command is a real skill with real consequences on Sundays. Dismissing it entirely just because it cannot be measured by a reporter's sideline tally would not be intellectually honest. And based on reporting that has circulated, Watson does hold a genuine edge here. He has been operating in professional huddles since 2017. That is close to a full decade of running cadence in real game situations against live defenses actively trying to time the snap. That kind of accumulated repetition builds a comfort level and a command presence that a player in his second NFL season simply has not had the volume of reps to develop yet. Acknowledging that reality is not a knock on Shedeur. It is an honest assessment of where each quarterback sits in his career trajectory. But here is where the skepticism becomes entirely fair. Look at the sequencing. Before pads, the critique was arm talent. That lost traction, so it became pocket presence. That lost traction, so it became cadence. Each time a measurable concern gets addressed by the available evidence, the criticism migrates to something that happens to be harder to evaluate from outside the building. Arm talent is measurable. Completion percentage is measurable. Touchdown to interception ratios are measurable. Cadence command in a sophisticated NFL offense is not something any of us watching from a distance can grade on a scorecard. The honest version of this conversation holds two things simultaneously. Cadence is real. Watson's experience gives him a genuine advantage there. And the pattern of shifting criticism every time a previous concern gets answered by the evidence is something that deserves a skeptical eye regardless of how legitimate the newest concern might be on its own merits. But there is someone with real inside experience who sees this competition from a completely different angle than the daily narrative has been willing to explore. Not everyone covering this competition has been racing to crown a winner based on practice stat trackers, and the most grounded outside perspective on what is actually happening inside Berea has come from someone who knows firsthand what it looks like when an NFL organization publicly runs a quarterback competition, while privately having a very clear internal answer already in place. Josh Cribbs, the former Cleveland Browns wide receiver and current media personality, weighed in on this battle with a take that cuts through the noise in a genuinely useful way. It deserves to sit alongside the daily camp reports rather than getting buried underneath them, because the substance of what he said applies to something much deeper than who completed more passes on a Tuesday afternoon. Cribbs acknowledged directly that Shedeur is currently the favorite. He did not dismiss the practice numbers. He did not wave away the performance evidence that has been building consistently through camp, but he specifically cautioned fans and media against reading too deeply into raw training camp statistics. His argument was that the evaluation coaches are actually conducting happens at a level far more subtle than touchdown counts and completion tallies can capture. His focus was on what coaching staffs are really charting on their clipboards during these sessions. How a quarterback is moving within the pocket when pressure develops, whether he is working through his full read progression and delivering to the correct receiver rather than locking onto his first option, whether his footwork holds up when the pocket collapses around him, or whether he reverts to bad habits under genuine duress. These are the evaluative layers that matter most to the people making the final decision. And none of them show up in a reporter's unofficial practice tally, no matter how carefully that tally is being kept. Then Cribbs reinforced the point about the defense already knowing what is coming. Defensive backs in a training camp setting are not reacting to route combinations they have never encountered before. They have spent the practice week in film sessions, studying the exact offensive concepts the quarterback is about to run against them. Linebackers recognize formations the moment the offense lines up because they defended that same look in walkthrough 48 hours earlier. The competitive environment, even with pads on and a live pass rush installed, operates at a fundamentally different level of genuine unpredictability than a real game against a defense seeing your personnel groupings and route concepts for the first time. That does not render camp performance meaningless. But it means a 90+% completion rate in this setting needs to be interpreted differently than the same number produced in a preseason game against an unfamiliar opponent, with no advanced film study of your playbook. Then Cribbs went one step further with an observation that generated more conversation than anything else he said during the segment. He told his audience that he genuinely believes the Cleveland organization already has a strong internal sense of who their starting quarterback is going to be. That the daily competition framing being presented to media might not fully reflect the reality of what has already been discussed and essentially decided within the building. I want to be absolutely clear about this because precision matters. That is Josh Cribbs' personal read. It is informed speculation based on his years inside NFL organizations. It is not a confirmed report from a named source inside the Browns' front office. Nobody in the Cleveland organization has publicly stated that a decision has already been made, but his perspective reflects something genuinely worth understanding about how professional football teams actually operate. Front offices rarely run truly open competitions at the quarterback position. By the time training camp opens, most organizations have developed a strong internal lean that has been building through the entire offseason process, from pre-draft evaluation through OTAs through the first padded practice. The public competition serves purposes that have nothing to do with genuine uncertainty, keeping the backup engaged, maintaining roster leverage, preserving flexibility in case of injury. If Cribbs is even partially right, then part of the real story of this competition is not being written on the practice field at all. It is being written in conversations behind closed doors that no sideline notebook and no press conference answer can fully reveal. And while everyone has been focused on the quarterback room, something significant has been building on the other side of the football that could determine whether any of this quarterback talk actually matters when the real games begin. It has been easy to let the quarterback competition consume every available inch of Browns training camp coverage. Given the stakes and the personalities involved, that is understandable. But there is a real and substantive story developing on the defensive side of the ball in Berea that has been getting a fraction of the attention it deserves. And if you are only following the quarterback headlines, you are missing something that could define Cleveland's entire season. Linebacker Quincy Williams has reportedly been all over the field through the early days of camp. Coaches and teammates have both taken specific notice of the kind of physical disruptive energy he is playing with, the kind that forces an offense to account for his presence on every single snap. That sort of linebacker impact does not just affect running lanes. It changes protection calls. It forces quarterbacks to identify him pre-snap. It occasionally causes the kind of mental errors in blocking assignments that produce backfield disruption before a play even fully develops. But the two names generating the most substantive defensive conversation heading into this season are Graham and Carson Steelinger. And both of them are backed by rookie-year production that is worth examining carefully rather than just hyping in the abstract. Graham was the 5th overall pick in last year's draft, which came loaded with the kind of expectation weight that typically slows rookie interior defensive linemen during their first professional season. The transition from college to NFL interior line play is one of the steepest learning curves in all of football. Blocking schemes become significantly more complex. The physical power across the line of scrimmage increases dramatically. The processing required to handle double teams, stunts, and pulling guards all within the same game represents a different challenge entirely than most college programs prepare their players for. And yet, Graham finished his rookie year with 49 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and led all rookie interior defensive linemen in snaps played across the entire league. He also finished second on the entire Cleveland defense in quarterback pressures. The only player ahead of him was Myles Garrett, a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year and one of the best pass rushers this league has produced in the last decade. For a rookie interior lineman playing alongside that kind of elite edge presence, finishing second on the team in pressures is a number that reflects genuine first-year productivity rather than just draft pedigree justifying a roster spot. Year 2, for interior defensive linemen, tends to be where the real breakthrough happens. Once a player has spent a full season absorbing NFL blocking schemes, learning where his matchup advantages exist, and developing counter moves to the techniques that shut him down in year 1, the production jump between season 1 and season 2 on the interior tends to be more dramatic than at nearly any other position. The foundation Graham built supports real expectations for a significant step forward. Then there is Steelinger, the rookie linebacker who stepped into what became a critical role almost immediately after injuries, and a surprise retirement created an opening at inside linebacker that the organization had not fully planned for heading into last season. Steelinger did not just fill that opening. He led the entire Cleveland team in tackles as a rookie, and more significantly, he did it while serving as the defensive signal caller. That means he was responsible for identifying offensive formations, making checks at the line of scrimmage, communicating adjustments to his teammates, and processing personnel groupings in real time during live games. As a rookie, that is not a role any NFL organization hands to a player they do not trust completely. The defensive talent in this building is real and developing in directions that could make Cleveland genuinely difficult to play against this season. If you are part of the Gridiron Ground family, you already know this channel covers the full picture and not just the loudest storyline. Subscribe now because the defensive breakdowns coming through preseason are going to be just as detailed as everything we do on the quarterback side. And the offensive line investment Cleveland made this offseason connects directly back to the quarterback evaluation. The line Shedeur operated behind last season was ranked 31st in the NFL. That is not merely a bad line. That is a line that placed every quarterback who dropped back behind it at a structural disadvantage no amount of talent could fully overcome. Cleveland used real draft capital this offseason, specifically targeting offensive line improvement. More time in the pocket means more opportunity for read progressions to develop. Better protection means fewer desperate throws under pressure. A stronger run game opens up play-action windows that simply did not exist last year. Whether that investment translates fully into improved performance requires real game reps to confirm. But the direction is clear. Cleveland is trying to fix the structural problem that made evaluating their quarterback nearly impossible last season. If the offensive line investment pays off even partially, and the defensive development continues on its current trajectory, the Browns might be heading into this season with a legitimate foundation on both sides of the football for the first time in years. And that foundation is what makes the final piece of this quarterback decision carry so much weight. To fully understand why this competition matters beyond the daily camp updates, you have to understand the specific distance between what Deshaun Watson was and what he has become since arriving in Cleveland. Because that distance is the gravitational force pulling on every decision being made inside that building right now. In Houston between 2018 and 2020, Watson made 3 consecutive Pro Bowls. He posted a career passer rating north of 104 with the Texans. He was considered one of the most talented dual-threat quarterbacks in the entire league, capable of extending plays with his legs, throwing accurately on the move, making decisions at the line of scrimmage that consistently moved the chains against top-tier defenses. There was a legitimate argument during those seasons that he belonged in the top 5 at the position, and multiple credible analysts made that case without hesitation. Then everything came apart. The legal situation in Houston. The suspension. The trade to Cleveland with a contract that became the largest fully guaranteed deal in NFL history at the time it was signed. $230 million. Fully guaranteed. Every single dollar. That number is not just a salary figure on a spreadsheet. It is a weight that has hung over every snap, every incompletion, every interception, and every missed game Watson has experienced in a Browns uniform since the moment the ink dried. Since arriving in Cleveland, Watson has completed just over 61% of his passes. He has thrown 19 touchdowns against 12 interceptions. His passer rating in a Browns uniform sits at 87, a meaningful and undeniable drop from the 104+ he was producing in Houston. And across his entire tenure in Cleveland, he has missed 50 total games due to a combination of suspension and injury. 50 games. For context, that is more than 3 full NFL regular seasons worth of missed time. For a quarterback on a contract of that magnitude, that missed time does not just affect the win-loss column. It has fundamentally disrupted the ability of any coaching staff to build consistency around a single offensive identity. You cannot establish a real system when your starting quarterback changes every few weeks. You cannot fully evaluate whether a scheme fits a player when the player is barely available to run it. The version of Watson who has suited up for Cleveland has shown flashes of the player he was in Houston. There have been individual games where the processing speed, the arm talent, and the playmaking instinct he demonstrated with the Texans appeared clearly enough to remind everyone in the stadium what his ceiling looks like. Those flashes are real. They are not manufactured by a front office trying to justify an unjustifiable contract. But flashes have not been enough. The cumulative record since 2022 reflects a player who has been unable to consistently reproduce what once made him elite. Whether that is because of physical limitations from his injuries, because of the poor supporting infrastructure around him, or because of some combination of both that has proven impossible to separate cleanly in the evaluation. That is the real context behind the Watson experience and cadence advantage conversation. Yes, he has close to a decade of professional huddle experience. Yes, that accumulated repetition translates into a genuine edge in cadence command and pre-snap processing. Those things are true, and they deserve honest acknowledgement. But experience operating in a professional huddle and being the right long-term quarterback choice for this specific Cleveland team at this specific moment are 2 genuinely separate questions. Treating the first one as though it automatically answers the second is where the analysis around this competition has gotten lazy. Watson's experience advantage is real. His cadence edge is real. His best football when it has appeared in Cleveland has been real. And none of those things necessarily mean that handing him the starting job over a player who is currently outperforming him in padded practice is the correct football decision for an organization that needs to start building towards something durable rather than cycling through another year of hoping a veteran can recapture a version of himself that has been absent for nearly 3 full seasons. The 2 questions deserve to be answered separately. Who has more experience? And who gives Cleveland the best chance of building something that actually lasts? Merging them together, because the experienced option feels like the safer choice, is exactly how organizations end up trapped in a loop of justifying past decisions, instead of making the right one moving forward. That is the real weight pressing down on every single rep happening in Berea. Not just a competition between 2 quarterbacks for a starting job this September, but a choice between continuation and change that a franchise with Cleveland's recent history genuinely cannot afford to get wrong. Strip away the daily stat tracker debates. Set aside the cadence conversations, the national media segments, and the training camp hype cycles that reset every 24 hours. When you clear all of that noise out, what remains is a remarkably clean question sitting at the center of everything happening in Berea right now. A fifth-round pick who endured one of the most publicly humiliating draft nights any prospect has ever experienced went out and posted a historically notable rookie season behind the worst offensive line in professional football. He is now outperforming a $230 million former number 1 overall pick in the first padded practices of a brand new season. The question facing the Cleveland Browns is whether the people inside that building see enough in what has happened, not just over the past few days, but over the past full year of accumulated evidence, to make the choice that the on-field data keeps pointing toward. Every preseason snap from this point forward adds another data point. Maybe the conversation shifts again after the first preseason game. Maybe cadence becomes the dominant story, or maybe something nobody has anticipated yet surfaces and changes the entire landscape. That is the nature of this process, and staying genuinely open to new information matters more than locking into a conclusion prematurely. But right now, in this moment, based on what reporters on the ground have documented, what national analysts have argued publicly with their professional credibility on the line, what the rookie season game log actually reveals when you look beneath the surface, and what the first padded practices have consistently produced, the story coming out of Berea is pointing towards something that a whole lot of people spent the entire offseason insisting was never going to happen. That is what makes this the most compelling quarterback competition in the entire league right now. And Gridiron Ground is not leaving this story until every last snap has been fully broken down for you. Drop your prediction below. One word, one emoji. Tell me how this ends. And if this breakdown gave you something real to think about, hit subscribe, because the preseason analysis coming next is going to hit exactly like this every single time.